de vous accueillir à cette réunion.
So delighted to meet you to this meeting, which follows the publication of our annual results. The press release with all the details is available on our website. And apparently there's a problem in the French version, but the right French version will be available in a few minutes. So I'm here with you, Christophe Douat, Chairman of Medincell's Management Board. To my left, Rémi Arango, our Chief Financial Officer. And with us, and this is the first time here, is Sébastien Hainaut, who heads up our business development activities. And live from Philadelphia, we have Dr. Richard Malamut, our medical director. Good evening, Richard. Or good morning for you.
Nous allons commencer tout à l'heure la réunion avec la présentation. Avec la présentation des
we
résultats.
begin this review, the presentation of our results. So we will also review the major events of the past year, or what has happened since the close of business on the 31st of March. And we're also going to talk about the future and answer your questions. You can ask these questions right now using the chat module on the right of your screen. So please do send in any questions. Before we go any further, I would like you to look at the disclaimers concerning any forward-looking statements that might be made this meeting. These are on the presentation that will be posted online after this conference on the Medincell website. So for information, this video conference is in French and English. There is a live simultaneous translation, so you can ask questions in French or in English. And you can also like the questions on the website so that they pushed up higher in the list. So before we go into the details of the financial results with you, Rémi, I'm going to turn to you, Christophe, on my right, so that you can tell us, please, what are the key points of the past year and since the closing on the 31st of last March? Thank you, David. Hello, everybody, and thank you for being with us this evening. 2022-2023 was a real emotional roller coaster. We started the year preparing USAID's approval, and we found ourselves with a complete FDA response letter a few weeks later. And in recent weeks, we've had an avalanche of good news. First of all, the approval of UZEDY on the 28th of April. We also have 2 phase 3s underway, which started during the year on TEJICA and CWM. And recently, we had the results of phase 1 of TEJICA, which are essential. Richard will explain to us later why. In recent weeks, also, the new CEO of Tesa presented their new strategy, and we realized, and you realized also, that our products were at the heart of their strategy and that they were pushed to the forefront. And the latest event is an increase in capital, which allowed us to increase our visibility in terms of cash flow, a visibility which is strategic, because this will take us beyond these 2 phase 3s of TEJICA and CWM. So UZEDY is our first project to be approved by the FDA. It is also our first project developed with Tesa for schizophrenia. It's a best-in-class product with a significant impact for MedinCell. Firstly, because it is the first time that our technology will be treating patients on a large scale, and you can imagine the boost that this will have on our teams internally. Then UZEDY is tens of millions of potential royalty each year, and royalties that could cover our operational costs as from the end of 2025. Finally, it is a complete validation of our technology. It is the first FDA approval, and our business development team, Sebastian will talk about it later, no longer need to answer questions on our capacity to have an FDA approval and to bring a product to market. So that's as far as UZEDY goes. Now, I would really like to draw your attention to TJK. Why? Because its potential is even greater. It responds to a tremendous need for patients who today do not have any appropriate solution. And we can consider that TJK is a first-in-class product. It is incredible. A first-in-class product is what all the big pharmas dream of. It is a product which is the first in its sector and which has a potential to generate $7 billion of revenues yearly. One of the best Teva analysis very recently, who is extremely well known and was awarded as the first pharma analysis more than 10 times, and he's part of the Analyst Hall of Fame, even said in one of his recent analyses that TJK alone could have a potential impact on Teva's stock exchange rating to the extent of 50%. So you can imagine the pressure that there is internally in Teva to speed up this phase 3. The same analysis last Friday had a one-to-one with Teva's CEO and Chief Medical Officer, and he reports that 200 patients have already been included in the current phase 3, and none to date have had any PDSS warnings. Richard will explain what that means, and let me as well. This is essential to understand. The last point, CWM, which is our second phase 3 study. The phase 3 is going very well. Our partner is confirming the end of the recruitment in the 3rd quarter will be as planned. So, as you see, all signals are green for our products and even exceed our expectations. And despite this, it's paradoxical. We're still under pressure on the stock exchange. It is rated below its real value as we estimate it. And the analysis has said it's gone from 15 to 17 euros per share. Of course, it's frustrating. We're taking this very seriously, and we're making a lot of efforts in communication to explain the maturity and quality of our products. The potential of major news that is in the pipelines for the 12-18 coming months, the strategic potential of these products for Teva, the rest of the pipeline, define our financial visibilities that will allow us to see this news coming in. And therefore, we're very far from a biotech risk profile. Parallel to this, we're evaluating all of the possible strategies, even if certain plan that biotech will bounce back after the minus 50% that we experienced in 2022. In 2015 and in 2020, the crisis was followed by a bounce back of 100%. So in this case, MedinCell will, of course, be very well positioned. Thank you, Christophe. That was a great introduction to talk about last year and what has been happening since. Rémi, I'm turning to you now. Can you please just summarize the financial results of the last fiscal year, which were closed on the 31st of last March? Rémi. Thank you, David, and good evening, everybody. So yes, indeed, when we look at the revenue of the company, we're at 13.7 million euros, and that's a strong growth of 64% as compared to the previous year. So in these 13.7 million euros, 10 million euros correspond to service revenues and milestones reached. And this amount has more than doubled compared to the previous year, where we generated 4.1 million. So it's a very important step. So I'd like to recall that we generate a revenue that comes from the services that we provide to the Gates Foundation, to United, and we also received Teva's milestone when Teva took the decision to initiate phase 3 for MDC TJK. That was in August 2022. And very important, Sebastian will talk to us about this later on, we generated 1.6 million euros for feasibility studies. So it's quite premature, but this is a strong growth because in the previous years we generated only 300,000. So we multiplied that amount by more than 5. When we look at operational expenses, these amount to 37.7 million euros. That's a growth of 17%. 74% of our expenses are devoted to research and development, and 80% of growth of this expenditure come from research and development, considering the evolution of our different projects. Finally, our operational cash consumption for the year was 21 million euros, which is aligned with what? Yes, it's almost identical to the previous years. Exactly. And what we can also say is with our forecast of additional revenue plus the expenditure, our cash consumption should reduce greatly this year, in the current financial year. So this maybe it's time to describe the cash position of MedinCell and explain the direction you're taking for this year, maybe future years. Absolutely. On the 31st of March, we're counting on 6.5 million euros of cash flow. But since then, we have largely increased our financial visibility. On one hand, we've already received the Teva milestone, $4 million, 3.6 million euros, for the approval of UZD. We increased the capital, which generated 23.2 million euros net. Gross, this was 25.1 million euros. And there was a little bit of lag in the payment of the CIR. We pre-financed the CIR of 2021 for 4 million euros. And in addition to this, we now have access at any point, because we've already fulfilled the conditions, which was the UZD approval. We have access to the third part of the European Investment Bank loan. So which means that we have 4.2 million euros that are available, or almost available, in addition to the 6.5 million at closing. Exactly. And so it's a new era. We're going to start drawing in the royalties. Exactly. And that's why I said that previously the cash consumption should reduce, because we will start receiving royalties in future months, thanks to USD, and each quarter that will also give a positive cash result for the company. So, Rémi, you mentioned this, but we have led two big funding operations, a new loan with the EIB for 40 million euros and an increase in capital of 25 million euros. So my question is simple. Why did we do these now, at this point? Well, firstly, we're obliged to adapt our financial strategy following the delay in the launch of USD and the approval for marketing. So we did this this is something we were already working on. And we were working with the European Investment Bank, and we signed this contract in November 2022, which allowed us to restructure the debt that we had with them and to gain time to reimburse this loan by the end of 2027. And we also gained 20 million euros of additional funding. And you all know that we increased the capital, and that was a tactical decision. It's a very complicated context, but this allowed us to gain sufficient visibility to meet the next major steps, which are the first bonds of the first royalties of USD, and the results of phase 3, which we hope will be positive for MDC TJK, which has a tremendous amount of potential. Exactly. Last question, Rémi. The press release that we disseminated earlier on mentioned a non-respected clause for the EIB loan. Can you tell us about that? Yes, exactly. That is a financial clause which was not respected at 31st of March 2023. It is a clause which shows that the Treasury plus equity must be above €1. Since then, we've corrected this and we obtained a derogation from the EIB, a waiver. And when we do not respect one of the clauses in the contract, the EIB has the right to ask for the total or partial refund of the existing loan. So that was solution, no problem there. So that means they have the right, but it doesn't mean they do it systematically. No, as you know, the European Investment Bank is a partner for us. That's what we consider them to be. We've been working with them for 6 years, and they're there to help companies. They're not venture capitalists, but they, of course, have to have a return on investment, and that is to help companies. So we have very good relationship with them. And in this press release, we also put that at the 31st of March 2024, there is a risk that this ratio will not be respected. So as we said earlier on, the European Investment Bank would have the right to request a total or partial refund. And that's why at the 31st of March 2024, we will have cash, not necessarily to refund the entire loan, but we're already working with the EIB on a number of solutions, be it a new derogation, as has already happened in the past, to change these clauses to adapt them to the business model. And we could also have, and Sebastian will talk to us about this later on, potential new revenues from licenses, from partners. Exactly. So if all goes well, and it's on that basis that we are working today, we will find a solution, and when this solution is there, we can confirm today that our financial visibility takes us at least up to the last quarter of 2025. So we have a good financial visibility, and it's an important moment because at that time, USD should be able to cover our operational expenditure. Thank you very much, Rémi. That was very clear. So I suggest now that we talk a little bit of development of our product portfolio. So we're going to come back to the big piece of news, although it did come along after closing. And this was the approval of UZEDY by the American FDA and the beginning of marketing the product by Teva's sales team in America. So I'm going to turn to Richard, who, as I said, is in Philadelphia. Richard, just a simple two questions. The first is, can you recall what UZEDY is for us? And also then, could you explain why this product has the potential of becoming the reference treatment for schizophrenia? Richard.
And so, David, so UZEDY is a long-acting injectable formulation of risperidone, which is the molecule most commonly used as an antipsychotic in schizophrenia. It's available as a monthly or an every other monthly treatment, and it's available in all 4 doses of oral risperidone, 2, 3, 4, and 5 milligrams, in contrast to some of the existing formulations. Now, antipsychotics, the oral antipsychotics work very well for the treatment of schizophrenia. The problem is that patients don't take their drugs. They don't have adequate compliance, which leads to a relapse. After relapse, they require hospitalization to get back under control. And this happens in up to 80% of patients with schizophrenia within the first 5 years of treatment. And even after hospitalization and successful control, another 50% of patients relapse again within 2 months after hospital discharge. So there are many long-acting injectable risperidones available on the market, but they have limitations. And it's why we believe that UZEDY will be a best-in-class long-acting injectable risperidone. So first of all, UZEDY is subcutaneous with a smaller needle and so less painful than the intramuscular formulations which make up most of the approved products. Second, it's available in a pre-filled syringe, so psychiatrists don't need to reconstitute it, to mix it in their office, which is not something psychiatrists like to do. And third, and most important, it reaches therapeutic levels within the first 24 hours of injection. There's no need for oral supplementation or titrating injections. You immediately reach your therapeutic level. So that's differentiating, but Teva was able to produce some additional data in their phase 3 study that further differentiates UZEDY from existing formulations of LAI risperidone. In addition to meeting its primary endpoint for both monthly and every other monthly injections for a reduction in relapse rate, an increased time to relapse at 6 months compared to placebo, UZEDY showed some other very interesting findings. First of all, because the study went on for 2 years, double-blind, randomized, controlled, the main symptom score for schizophrenia, the positive and negative symptom score, showed improvement beyond the initial expected phase. In other words, we expected an improvement in the PANSS early on, but what was surprising and quite beneficial for patients is that their symptom scores continue to improve during the 2 years of the study. And that's not been seen with the other agents. There was also a statistically significant improvement in quality of life measures, and that's rarely demonstrated in central nervous system studies. I was at the American Psychiatric Association meeting at the end of last May in San Francisco, which is the largest American Congress of Psychiatry. And I can tell you that there was quite a bit of interest in UZEDY by the practicing psychiatrist who attended the meeting, with quite a bit of interest at the Teva booth at the meeting, and physicians calling it a game changer in schizophrenia treatment. David?
I can't hear what he's saying. I'm sorry, I have no sound.
Can you hear me, Anita?
I can hear you, but I have no sound from the French.
Okay, so I'm going to just talk. So thank you for the question, David. So while many psychiatrists will wait before prescribing a newly approved medication to assess how it's performing and to understand any reported safety issues, key opinion leaders are often early adopters and can influence community physicians. And as risperidone is a known molecule, and the differentiating from existing long-acting injectable risperidone formulations is quite clear, as I've just told you, it may be that UZEDY will be prescribed earlier for an individual patient than is typical. And this would begin with patients who are not tolerating their existing long-acting injectable formulations, or perhaps patients who are having relapses due to non-compliance with their oral antipsychotic medicines. And this could include switching directly to UZEDY not only from risperidone, but from non-risperidone or oral antipsychotics. And there was a poster at the American Psychiatric Association meeting last month, sponsored by Teva, in which 5 experts, 5 key opinion leaders in the treatment of schizophrenia wrote that patients are not hesitant about a long-acting injectable, and they recommended early use of long-acting injectables in general in the treatment paradigm of schizophrenia.
I don't have a sound.
Pour Médincel, que va-t-il se passer?
Oui. Donc,
Yes, so
ce produit, comme on l'a mentionné,
this product, as we mentioned previously, could cover our operating costs as from the end of 2025.
l'expérience de la pharma,
In my experience of pharmaceuticals,
qui ont une hypercroissance,
it takes 4 to 5 months to reach peak sales, and then the growth can stabilize.
comme on
At that point,
fréquemment,
as we often say,
royalties que nous savons percevoir
the royalties that we will be receiving from Teva
digit, c'est à peu
at
près
the mid to high digits could represent something between $50 and $70 million a
par
year
an et par an, si le produit est confirmé
and per year.
en best in class.
And that would confirm that our product is best in class.
On pourrait
And apart from that, we can also receive the $105 million
licences commerciaux.
of commercial milestones in the coming 5 years.
Parfait. Bon,
Perfect.
on a fini pour UZEDY, en tout
Right,
cas,
I think that we've
aujourd'hui,
finished for the
maintenant,
subject of
le produit va
UZD
vivre sa vie, et puis
today.
on vous donne rendez-vous
Now
dans
the product
quelques
will
mois
live
pour
its
parler-
life,
pour parler
and
des premières
we will
tendances
talk
de
about the
vente.
first trends, sales
Le
trends
deuxième
in a few
programme
months.
développé avec Teva,
The
Christophe en a
second
parlé tout
program
à l'heure,
with
et tu as
Teva
souligné
that
à quel
Christophe
point il est
mentioned
important
earlier on, and
ce
you
programme,
underlined how much this
à la fois
program
pour
is
Teva
important
et
both for
pour
Teva
Medincell.
and for
Ce
Medincell.
programme que l'on appelle chez nous MDC.
Is what we call
C'est également un
MDC
programme en
TJK.
schizophrénie.
It's also
La
a
phase
program for
3
schizophrenia.
pivot, c'est-à-dire la
The
dernière étape
pivotal
avant
phase
l'éventuelle
3,
demande
which is the
de
final
mise sur le
stage
marché sur
before
la
marketing
façon
approval if the
a
results are
débuté
good,
de manière
began
effective en janvier dernier.
last January.
Richard, est-ce que tu peux nous en dire
Richard,
un
can
peu
you
plus
tell us a bit
sur ce
more
produit et sur
about
cette
this
phase 3?
product and this phase 3?
Yes, sir, David. So MDC TJK is a long-acting injectable of olanzapine, which is another molecule widely used in schizophrenia, but it's not a competition to UZEDY, it's complementary because it's intended for more severe patients with schizophrenia who have more severe symptoms, or for patients who are refractory, who are not responding to existing oral antipsychotics. And for those patients who have more severe schizophrenia, compliance is even more important. So there is no long-acting injectable olanzapine injectable that's being used regularly. Now, there is one that's approved, but it's very little used, especially because it can lead to what's called post-injection delirium and sedation syndrome, or PDSS, as Christophe mentioned earlier. It's serious enough, even though it's rare, that the US FDA imposed significant constraints on its use. such as including a black box warning in the label and a requirement that patients must be monitored long-term in a REMS program, in which psychiatrists have to enroll and track, follow, and then report back to the FDA how patients do on this long-acting injectable olanzapine. But most impactful, patients must stay under observation for at least 3 hours in the clinic after each injection. It's believed that PDSS occurs due to a burst of olanzapine after intramuscular injection of the approved long-acting injectable. And so if this burst, this high peak of olanzapine, could be eliminated or blunted, there's a belief that PDSS may not occur at all. And Teva, our partner, just presented its phase 1 results with the long-acting injectable olanzapine last month at a Schizophrenia Investigator Research Society meeting in Toronto, Canada. And in that poster, they showed that there was no burst on single injection, both in healthy volunteers and schizophrenia patients, but also on repeat dosing, up to 3 monthly injections. And so it was based on this phase 1 data that Teva launched its phase 3 study with a belief that there will be limited to no PDSS in this study. So favorable safety and efficacy results from the phase 3 study, which does include a 2-month double-blind placebo-controlled efficacy part using positive and negative symptom scale as a primary endpoint, would be sufficient to lead to NDA filing. And this was confirmed with the FDA. It must demonstrate that efficacy during the 2-month portion, but also must confirm safety over the total study duration of 56 weeks. Because after the 8-week double-blind portion, there is a 48-week open label portion in which PDSS occurrence will be assessed with each injection. If the study completes with no PDSS cases, it may allow the FDA to eliminate the stringent monitoring requirements and black box warning that exist with the approved but not used long-acting injectable. So it would be best in class for certain, like UZEDY, but in effect, with no other used product, a first in class, as Christophe mentioned. David?
Alors ma question, Richard, sur TJK encore, elle est assez simple.
So my question for TJK is quite simple. When will we know whether the product is safe and effective?
Well, not soon enough for Medincell and Teva. However, unlike the UZEDY trial, which took quite a bit of time to complete due to the length of the study, this phase 3 for LAI olanzapine is very different. It should go much quicker with only a 2-month double-blind placebo-controlled portion, a 48-week open label with a fixed target of 640 patients. And based on Teva's current reported recruitment projections in clinicaltrials.gov, you can see that top-line data for the 2-month results should be available 4th quarter of 2024. But because of the potential impact of this product, we would expect that Teva will attempt to speed recruitment, which could allow for early completion of the study and earlier time to market. David?
Merci, Richard. Je vais me tourner vers toi, Rémi.
Thank you, Richard. I'm going to turn to you, Rémi, and I'm going to ask you the same question for UZEDY. It's a little bit more distant, but how can what Richard said translate into figures for Medincell? So yes, if this phase 3 and the results are achieved in 2024, if the results are positive, as Richard just explained, it could be a first-in-class product. It could be considered to be a first-in-class product. And it will meet the needs of many patients. So when you have a best-in-class and also a first-in-class, as we saw in the slides earlier on, this market could represent several $billion. for Teva.
Ça se traduit comment pour
And what does this mean for us? Well, with UZD, we would move from
millions de
tens of millions of dollars of royalties to be received to hundreds
par an.
per year.
C'est un potentiel énorme.
So it's a tremendous potential.
Là, on les attend dans les
And we're
6 mois qui viennent.
expecting these results in the coming 18 months, so practically tomorrow. So major news expected in 18 months regarding that
Je me
program.
retourne rapidement vers toi,
So
Richard.
I'm turning back to you,
On a beaucoup
Richard.
commenté UZD
We've
et
commented a
TJK.
lot UZD
Rapidement,
and
quels sont les autres événements marquants
TD.
concernant le reste du
Okay,
portfolio
what are
de
the
la
other
société?
remarkable events regarding the rest of the portfolio?
Yeah, so with all the excitement around the UZEDY approval and the progress being made with the long-acting injectable olanzapine product, we have to remember that there's yet a third later stage product that we've partnered with AIC, a biotech based in Toronto, Canada, who began the first phase 3 study for our pain product MDC-CWM for the treatment of postoperative pain in patients who have had total knee replacement surgery, which, as a reminder, is quite painful, typically requires high-dose opioids, and frequently, in as much as 15% of patients, leads to opioid addiction. And so this product, which is an intra-articular celecoxib, is designed to not only produce analgesia at beyond 3 days and as long as 2 weeks after surgery, but also mitigate opioid use, decrease the risk of addiction, and improve patient function after surgery. And so recruitment is going quite quickly, and we expect completion later this year with data available on the top line results by the end of the year. And we know that there's going to be one additional study at least, but this will depend on the strength of the data and our discussions with FDA. In the pain division, typically 2 confirmatory studies are required, so we know we'll need at least one more, depending on the results of the study. And then beyond that, we have 3 products which we're developing internally, not partnered as of now, in which we plan on taking into phase 1 within the next 12 months. And these include a 6-month subcutaneous contraceptive, which is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a 1-month long-acting injectable formulation of tacrolimus for organ transplant rejection, where non-compliance with your tacrolimus can lead to organ rejection, a very serious outcome, and a purely global health program, MDC-STM, which uses the endectocidal agent ivermectin against malaria and is funded by Unitaid. And if that weren't enough, we have several other programs in the formulation stage that we haven't disclosed yet. And I very much look forward to talking about those in the future. David?
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Richard, pour
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for this description of our portfolio. So we received a lot of questions, but before we move on to the question, I'm turning to you, Sebastian. Good evening. So we're lucky to have Sebastian with us. Sebastian is often all over the place across the world with his teams, but it so happens that he was in Montpellier today, so we got hold of him and asked him to come with us. So as it's the first time you've been with us, maybe a couple of words to introduce yourself. Of course, I'm Sebastian Eno. I'm the Chief Business Officer of Medincell. I manage the business and medical marketing teams. That's a team of 10 people with very international profiles. We have 6 different nationalities on our team. And the mission of the team is to identify and launch future Medincell programs, be it internally or with partners. So, Sebastian, we said earlier on, and Rémi noted this, our financial results show that revenues from partnerships have increased. I'm talking about new partnerships. We talked about feasibility studies that went from 300,000 euros for the previous financial years to about 1.6 million euros in the current financial year. So, what does this correspond to? Well, as Christophe said, we've really entered into a new era for Medincell. the medicine cell technology was approved by the FDA, but I must say that we didn't wait for the approval of USAID to launch new partnerships. This is an exercise we've already done. We work with a number of partners on different types of products with molecules that are already approved, but we also work with molecules that are in the clinical development phases, and we often work in other therapeutic areas. So we've launched feasibility studies whose objective is to make sure that we have real chances of success of finding the right formulation. As you can understand, these feasibility studies are highly strategic for our partners, and we will say a little more when we can. Oh, we're eager to find out. So, feasibility studies, and we've understood that you can't say more on these new programs, on the details, what indications and what partners, but what will happen if these feasibility studies are positive? Well, if the feasibility studies are positive, the next step will be the creation of license contracts, as we did with Teva, with upfront payments, milestones, and royalty payments, and the startup of all of the other development phases. And a story, because you were talking about traveling, I was in the Bio Conference in Boston a few weeks ago. A big conference. I think there were more than 15,000 participants. And there were more than 65 qualified appointments, which is quite a staggering number. Four of my team were there, and I must say that the USAID approval really is speeding things up. And I think that we've been waiting for this for a number of years, and we're there now. So we no longer need to convince people, fight to convince, we can demonstrate what we were able to do. Well, the two programs in phase 3 with a technology that has been FDA approved, with the approval of USAID, all of the questions we had in the past as to whether our technology is truly non-toxic when we administer it subcutaneously or via other administration pathways, we no longer have that type of question. So we even have the luxury of spending time with future partners and screen the pipelines of all of their products to identify what is the best molecule that we could develop together. Oh, we are impatient. I think I'm not the only one to see what will happen to this. So let's move on to questions. Here we go. So we're going to take all of the questions, even those that are a little bit tricky. We're going to start with those that are tricky, and I'm going to summarize the question. It says basically, why did you try to break the mounting prices of the shares by selling shares just when we were about to make the USAID announcement? So, well, of course, this is a legitimate question, except that nobody tried to break the value of the share. Just to give you the details, and I'm being entirely transparent here, I hadn't sold any shares since we'd entered the stock exchange, and it so happened that I needed to sell some, and I decided to sell some 10% in autumn. So I have kept 90%. So the sale of a director's share is a very sensitive subject, but also very highly regulated. There's a strict framework. So there are sales orders that must be given a long time upstream. I gave that order at the beginning of December 2022. On condition of the approval of USAID, out of respect for our shareholders, and with all necessary precautions so that it didn't weigh on the rating. And so the sale represented only 9% of volume. So the circumstances meant that things didn't happen as planned, with a lot of pressure on the value, but it was difficult to imagine that 6 or 7 months beforehand. Thank you for that clarification, Christophe. We're going to move on to the next question. This is for you, Rémi. We'll ask some more details on the non-respected clause with the European Investment Bank, but I think we've already said quite a lot about that. Maybe the second part of the question is interesting. What is our level of confidence in the possibility of solving this problem? Maybe this will be the opportunity of identifying how we can solve this problem, or maybe with new partners. Absolutely. So this ratio is a very simple ratio.
c'est comme ça que c'est
But
que les capitaux propres.
is that equity and plus cash must be above 1.
Mad- un.
1.
Ah non. Pardon. Donc, là, on va arrêter les comptes.
So-
On les arrête sur la base que.
So we
on a-
close the accounts on the basis that we have visibility. We have more than 12 months visibility.
Ça reflète aussi la
This
confiance
is also the reflection of the trust in that Christophe and myself have in finding a solution, as we already have in the past with the European Investment Bank.
Ils nous connaissent.
We know them, they know
On est
us.
passé à un autre stade.
Now we've moved on to another stage.
On est assez confiant
And so we're quite confident
soit une solution
that
directement
there will either be a solution directly to be found with them,
c'est qui-
or
là, plus
assets, equity plus cash
trouver de nouveaux
to
partenaires.
find new partners.
Attention
Absolument pas.
Hence,
on s'étonne avec,
Seb.
avec Sébastien. Mais ça peut être
So,
de nouveaux partenaires.
it
qui
can
vont
be
payer en
new
upfront,
partners who pay up front,
des milestones, des services que nous savons
milestones or services rendered,
donc,
etc.
des solutions, il y en aura.
So there will be
Et,
solutions.
et comme je le disais à
And
l'instant,
as I was saying just
la
now,
Banque européenne d'investissement
the European
est là
Investment
pour
Bank
aider les entreprises.
is there to help companies,
Donc,
not to
c'est-
disrupt them.
Ils nous ont montré déjà
And
en
that
2018
is
avant
what
la
they showed us
pandémie.
already in 2018 before
aussi,
we were listed
pendant
on the
la
stock
pandémie,
exchange. Also during the
On a aussi
pandemic,
renégocié avec eux.
we renegotiated with them.
L'année dernière, suite
Last year,
à la CRL, nous avons
following the
aussi obtenu
CRL, we
un
also
nouveau
obtained a new loan.
Ils nous
So
connaissent bien,
they know us well,
nous, on les connaît bien.
and we know them well.
C'est un vrai partenaire.
Also, it's a real partner. Yep, they're real strategic partners of the company. Absolutely.
Merci beaucoup, Rémi. Prochaine
Thank you very much,
question,
Rémi.
alors,
Next
pour
question.
toi également, Rémi.
For you
Je
also,
sais pas
Rémi.
comment tu vas pouvoir répondre,
I
mais
don't know how you can
est-ce que
answer,
tu peux nous
but
donner des détails
can
sur
you
les
give us some
milestones
details
commerciaux,
on the commercial milestones? So here we're talking about USAID, of course, which is being launched on the market.
nombre de patients traités,
And can
chiffre
you
d'affaires,
tell us the number of patients treated, the
Par exemple,
turnover? Maybe you can't
Oui,
go into too many
malheureusement,
details,
un peu
but
de couleur à tout ça.
maybe you
Oui,
can
malheureusement, je peux pas
put a
vous
bit of
donner
color behind this.
le
Yes,
montant
unfortunately, I cannot give you the
exact
a-
des ventes annuelles de
a
tirage
precise
qui
amounts
déclenchent
of sales of
les
TIVA
paiements
that will
de ces
trigger
différents milestones.
the payment of these
Au
different
total,
milestones.
ça représente
In all,
105
it
millions
represents
de
$105 million. And this is also why, when I was talking,
dollars, que la
when I was
forte
saying that
croissance
the strong growth
en 5 ans.
uh,
Donc, c'est dans cet espace
will be over the
de temps
next 5 years. So it's over that period of time that we expect
des milestones,
to hit most of the commercial milestones.
Donc,
Thank you.
juste pour préciser, pour bien prendre
Just to clarify, to answer the question, it's not a question of number of patients treated,
de
but it's a
chiffre
question of
annuel
yearly turnover of
on
TIVA.
continue.
calendaire.
Calendaire. 1er janvier,
Yearly.
31 décembre. Donc,
1st of January to 31st of December. Exactly.
pourquoi faire simple On reste sur Teva, alors peut-être Christophe.
So we're going to
nous
stay
pose la
with
question sur
Teva.
le produit
Maybe
de
Christophe, we could
Teva,
ask the question about the
MDC,
MDC
depuis plusieurs années
AN
maintenant.
J, which is a product that has been developed
C'est
for
un
several
produit qui est en préclinique.
years. Well, this is a product that's in the preclinical phase, and Teva does not wish to communicate on this today.
Je confirme.
I
On
confirm.
verra et on espère avoir des nouvelles prochaines.
So we hope we will have news soon of that
Je
product.
prends la question suivante. Alors,
Going to
celle-ci,
take the
elle
next
concerne,
question. This one concerns
F14 et peut-être pour
F14,
Richard.
and maybe for Richard.
Au sujet de
Richard, regarding
F14, en fait, c'est
F14
l'appellation
is
de
the name given to MDC CWM with our Canadian partner, the IC. So Richard, if the phase 3 of this is successful, can we extend this analgesic to other operations such as surgery of the shoulder, the hip, the spine, without going through all of the clinical phases? Meaning, can we accelerate the process to approve the product for other indications?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we are focused, laser focused on post-operative pain in knee replacement surgery. We're focused on executing on the ongoing study and then planning with the FDA for the next study to get approval. Now, everything goes well and the studies are positive, we have approval, and we can launch. Of course, we'll be looking at other indications, other potential uses of this formulation, but we're not ready to go into detail about what those are today.
Merci Richard.
Thank you,
La
Richard.
prochaine question sera peut-être pour toi, Sébastien. Je sais
Next
pas.
question will be for you, Sebastian. I don't know.
Tu as un peu éveillé notre curiosité.
You kind of
Notamment aussi, c'est
awaken our curiosity, and we can see that the accounts show that the feasibility studies brought in a lot more money this year than the previous
La
year.
question, elle est simple. À quel
The question
horizon
is
on pourrait
simple.
avoir une communication? Alors, je sais pas si tu peux
When
répondre
might we
sur
have a
les
communication on new partners?
Sur les études de faisabilité,
Well, communication not on feasibility studies, because there is always a risk that the molecule is not compatible with our
on ne
technology,
puisse pas aller à l'étape suivante qui est
and that we cannot move on to the next phase, which is after the positive feasibility study to move on to a partnership license contract.
l'exécution d'un contrat licence.
So I think it's when we execute this license that we can communicate
deux communicants.
on it. Now, as a communicator, I can add,
Sur le nom du partenaire, difficilement, à mon avis, sur
we
l'indication.
can talk about the number of partners. Difficult for the indication because it's very
Évidemment,
strategic.
notre ambition, c'est
But
de
our
faire
ambition
le plus possible, dès que c'est possible.
Is to present things as soon as possible,
Alors, je vais passer à la question suivante.
So,
Je vais
next
l'adresser
question,
à
which will be
Richard.
for
Alors, je sais pas
Richard.
s'il peut répondre,
But
il
I don't know if he
va
can
être
answer.
notre head of R&D, Adolphe,
Our
avec nous.
head of our R&D should be with us. We'll ask a question. We'll see who can answer. On the Oxford Global site in April 2023, there is a presentation on the possibility of delivering proteins for prostate cancer in the field of oncology. What is your strategy, partnership, or do you want to do proof of concept to develop this program internally? Who can answer this? Maybe Sebastian can, or Richard, or Christophe. I don't know.
J'avoue que là,
Oui, vous savez, on l'a déjà dit.
Well, you know, we've already said that historically BPO is highly suited to small molecules, which are hydrophobic.
On cherche continuellement à développer.
We're
de nouvelles
continually
technologies.
looking to develop new technologies to develop more hydrophilic molecules, in particular peptides and proteins.
Et donc, chemin faisant, on les teste.
So as we go along, we test these on molecules such as this one,
Aujourd'hui, un produit
which is not a product that is being developed in MedinCell today, but which allow us to assess the potential for this type of molecule.
de travaux qui donnent lieu à publication.
So it's this type of work which gives rise to publications, which is also Sebastian's job to
Que
show
l'on peut faire avec notre
what we can do with our technology.
Ces publications nous donnent
Yeah, so these publications give us information on
dans ce type de molécule.
the potential for this type of molecule.
Juste rajouter que
And I can just
deux
add
partenariats
that
qu'on a fait rentrer
two partnerships that we engaged
concernent des molécules
for coming months for MedinCell concern molecules which are not small molecules.
informations importantes.
Okay, that's a very
Donc, des peptides
important piece of information. Therefore, peptides and proteins, to be more precise.
Christophe, la prochaine question.
Christophe,
est
the
pour
next
toi.
question is
Elle
for
est
you.
simple.
It's
On l'a
simple.
posée 2 fois d'ailleurs.
I think
Est-ce
that
qu'on
this
peut
question has
avoir
been
arrêté
asked
notre
twice.
programme en santé
Why
en
did
animal?
we stop our animal health
Écoutez,
program?
aujourd'hui, avec les résultats de
Well,
phase
today,
3,
with the phase 3 results of UZD,
qui sont vraiment spectaculaires,
which
hein,
are spectacular,
au-delà de nos
which
de nos
far
espoirs.
exceed
Ça,
our
comme,
hopes.
l'a indiqué, a amené
As
une
Sebastian
accélération, de nos
said,
collaborations
this
en
has really
santé humaine.
allowed us to pick up the pace of our partnerships in human health. So we have to focus first of all on our mission, which is
Puis aussi, là, il y a
to
un gros
treat
potentiel financier.
people and not
Il est
animals.
clair
And of
que
course,
ce
there's a bigger
programme,
financial potential
n'est
as
plus une
well.
priorité stratégique.
Of course, this program is no longer a strategic priority for
Merci.
MedinCell
On
today.
va essayer, on a encore pas mal de questions, mais on va
We
essayer
have quite a few questions, but we're going to
répondre
try and
assez rapidement.
ask them by giving very quick
Alors,
answers.
Rémi, l'exercice présente l'exercice actuel.
Remy, the
Actuel
current
montre une
financial
revenu de
year
1,2
shows a
million
revenue of
de
1.2 million
de la
royalties
avec Corbion. Quelles
with,
sont
from
les
Corbion.
pour
What are the
2023, en fait, pour,
outlooks
l'année à côté?
for
Peut-être rappeler un peu ce que fait
2023 for the
Corbion?
entire year? Maybe you can just remind us what we do with Corbion. I'm going to
Comment
explain
ça
the
marche?
framework and
La
how it
joint
works.
venture, donc c'est une
It's
société
a joint venture
détenue à 50-50
and the company is held 50-50 between Corbion and MedinCell. It's called CM
Nos
Biomaterials.
partenaires, ils doivent acheter des
So
polymères
our partner
base
must purchase the polymer, which is
à
the
cette-
basis of our technology from this
mais
company,
cette société,
but
elle
that
va
company
sous-traiter la production
outsources the
de la
production
technologie BIPO.
of the BIPO technology to Cornu.
Il y a un prix, une différence des marges qui sont créées
There is a difference in profit margins that are created in the joint venture between
d'achat de
the
la
purchase
joint
cost
venture
of the joint venture and the sales price to our
et c'est,
partners, and
ces marges qui sont divisées
These profit margins are split 50-50 between Medincell and Corbion.
C'est de là, c'est ces ventes de polymères où
So it's the sale
on
of
voit
polymer.
ces ventes. Donc ça peut varier.
That's where we see the
Ça
sale. So
dépend
this
des partenaires.
can vary. It depends on our partners, on their needs, or batch
Préparation d'un lancement,
validations, preparation of launches of phases
ça
3,
fluctue énormément.
etc. So it goes up and down.
Cette année, c'était 1,2
This year it was
million.
1.2
L'année
million.
précédente,
The
c'était
previous year it was 100,000.
l'année d'avant, c'était
And the year before that it was 40 or 50, I think. So it's a good sign. Yes, it's a good sign.
ça.
That's what I like.
Et donc on attend maintenant,
So-
on attend l'année prochaine pour ça.
Well, waiting for next year to
On
know.
attend les semestres
what
de
happens.
objectifs. On donne-
Ça varie aussi énormément.
Yeah, so things are varying a lot, of course.
Je pose toutes les questions, je reviens sur le programme en santé animale.
So let's come back to the animal health program. We're asked if
Meloxicam, donc la
with
molécule utilisée en santé animale.
Melodoxitin, which is the molecule used in animal health, whether we plan for development in
On
human
les
health.
avait évalués,
Well, we
mais,
assessed these,
pas sur cette
but
molécule-là.
not for
Je
that
rappelle que le
molecule.
programme
I'd like to
F14,
recall that the F14 program
dont parlait Richard,
that
est une
Richard was
molécule
talking to
anti-inflammatoire,
about is an anti-inflammatory molecule, the
Cerebrex,
celecoxib,
son nom commercial.
the commercial name being Cerebrex, and which was chosen for that application.
Très bien. Christophe, on nous demande à quel stade.
Christophe
nous
were asked
allons
at what
introduire
stage we
des
will
partenariats
consider
pour le
introducing
développement
partnership for
de nos programmes en développement interne.
our internal development programs,
On nous précise, Medincell n'ayant pas de capacité
because
commerciale.
Medincell doesn't have any commercial capacity.
Le critère principal, c'est la qualité
The
du
main
partenaire.
criterion is the quality of the
Capacité
partner,
d'abord
their capacity
mener à bien le développement. Comme
to
Teva,
lead the development,
remarquablement bien fait
like
sur Uzedy,
Teva has done
etc.
remarkably well for Uzedy
Par la
and
CRL,
TJK, apart from the,
et puis aussi à
CLL, of course.
commercialiser.
and of course to
Teva,
market it. In
c'est
the
des
case of
projets qui sont
Teva, these
prioritaires
projects are a
dans un
priority
domaine où ils ont la force de
in a
vente
field
parfaite
where they have the perfect
pour,
sales
exécuter,
force to
on regarde tous ces
launch
critères,
the product. So we look at all of these criteria, the development competencies, access to market, and when the time comes,
tous les astres sont alignés,
when all of the
que
stars are
les données qu'on
aligned,
a nous permettent
and
d'avoir
that the
accès
data that
aux
we have
partenaires idéaux.
allow them to give us access to the ideal partners,
On choisira de licencier
we
le
will
produit.
decide to
Et
license
plus
the
les
product.
phases seront avancées,
And the more advanced we are in the phases,
potentiellement sera juteux.
the more
Plus en plus, on pourra
financially
attirer des
interesting the
partenaires parce
contract, and the more partners we will
moins
be
il y
able
a
to
d'années
attract, because
que
the fewer the
stade
number
de
of years
licensing
between the
et l'approbation,
licensing step and the
plus des
approval,
partenaires qui s'intéressent.
the more partners there will be who will be interested, of course,
Bien sûr.
because the risk is lower.
Alors, la prochaine question, je vais peut-être la
So the
diviser
next
en deux.
question I will split
La première
into
partie va être
two.
pour toi, Rémi.
The first part
On
is for
demande
you, Remy.
Quel est le pourcentage
We're asked what is the
du
percentage
capital détenu
of
par les
capital
salariés,
held
les
by
fondateurs et
employees and
ex-salariés suite
founders
à
and ex-employees
l'augmentation de capital et la
after the
diminution
last
de-
increase in capital.
Et la deuxième question, alors où tu la prends
And
pas,
the
ou
second
Christophe, je sais
question
pas, je ne
you
sais
can
pas.
ask, or maybe Christophe can answer this.
N'avez-vous pas peur que Teva
Aren't you afraid that
quelqu'un
Teva or somebody else
vous rachète?
will buy you
Je me
out?
pose la question. Donc je te
D'accord.
laisse parler des frais de
Simple.
capital.
Fondateur, management,
So founders, management,
collaborateurs et
employees and
ex-collaborateurs
ex-employees
de l'entreprise
of the
détiennent
company
aujourd'hui
hold
plus ou moins circa
more
43% du capital.
43% of the
Environ
capital.
43%.
About 43% of the capital. That's it.
N'avez-vous pas peur
Aren't you afraid
Teva
that Teva or another group might buy you out?
Merci, David.
Christophe.
Teva
Thank you,
a déjà
David.
essayé dans le passé.
Teva's already decided, tried in the
On pensait
past,
avec raison que
but we thought, and rightfully so, that
potentiel,
Medincell
Teva, mais aussi dans d'autres indications.
had
Il faut se rappeler que le
Pot-
jour où
potential
on
with Teva and other
s'associerait,
indications.
trop fortement avec un partenaire,
well, if one day we have a partnership that is too strong with a partner, it will restrict our scope of action because Medincell wants to have the biggest scope of action possible. And now with Uzedy,
élargir
we
le
wish to
partenariat.
extend our partnerships.
Maintenant, si j'étais le CFO de Teva,
But if I were the
Avec les
CFO of
premiers
Teva,
de tendance d'Uzedy et
with the initial figures
les données
with
positives de phase 3
Uzedy trends
d'Uzedy, je ferais mon
and
calcul,
positive
évidemment.
results of phase 3, I would do my sums.
CFO digne de ce
And
nom,
any CFO worthy of that name would do that. So now it's up to us to show our capacity
élargir
to
nos partenariats,
extend our partnerships and also
développer,
to develop our products internally in an effective manner.
Christophe ou
Christophe
lors
or
des ou peut-être Sébastien lors des différentes interviews du mois de
Sebastian,
juin,
in the different
on a
interviews
évoqué
of
les
June,
femmes
we
de
talked
diabète.
about
Nous nous sommes
diabetes.
sur ce sujet.
Where do we stand on that topic?
Comme je l'ai dit,
As I said,
dans le champ
Christophe,
CNS.
Christophe
a évoqué ce...
mentioned that.
Je peux juste te dire que effectivement là on travaille.
So I can say that we're working in different therapeutical areas, not just CNS. We also work in fields where there is an interest in developing a long-action injectable form. And generally speaking, this is cardiometabolic scope. There's an interest. There are already existing LAIs where the technology could be appropriate. So you won't tell us any more? No, we have to wait.
Alors la prochaine question,
Next question.
elle gratte un petit peu. Donc,
It's a little bit tricky. So Rémi or Christophe, I'll let you
la
answer.
question est simple. Si vous pensez que
Simple
l'action
question.
vaut
If you
15
think that the share is worth 15 euros,
pourquoi avoir fait une AK, une augmentation de capital?
why did you increase the capital at
J'ai donné déjà
7.31
des
euros?
éléments en introduction.
Well, I've already given you
Ramé,
some
tu peux les répéter.
information in introduction. Rémi, maybe you can add to these and complete them.
Cette augmentation de capital
Yes, this increase in capital
en action tactique que nous avons
was a
fait,
tactical maneuver.
dans un contexte idéal.
It was not in an ideal
Mais,
context, of course, but
il faut se rappeler du contexte.
we must remember the context,
Le
the
contexte
macro
secteur
context, the
développé,
context of the
où les
sector of
sociétés
biotechs,
ont perdu
where companies lost 40 to 50% of their value without having any bad news.
Il n'y avait pas
Just quite simply,
d'investisseurs.
there were no investors.
Dans les marchés des capitaux,
On the equity
l'argent
market,
peut être là aujourd'hui,
the money
mais
is there
potentiellement pas
today
demain.
and maybe not tomorrow.
Donc, très souvent, on a
So very often we have this question.
fait l'augmentation de
Why did we increase our capital at that point? Why didn't we wait
Donc, le cours de bourse,
until the stock exchange went back up?
on n'est pas sûr,
But
compte tenu du contexte, déjà,
given the
des taux
context
d'intérêt
of
qui ont augmenté,
rising interest
la
rates,
crise avec,
then there
les
was
États-Unis,
the bank
aujourd'hui,
crisis
on
in the
parle
United
vraiment
States.
de la-
Today we're talking
de la
about
déflation,
deflation
de la situation économique en
and the economic
Allemagne.
situation in Germany.
Il y a eu des nouvelles aussi ce week-end.
There was news also this weekend in Russia, so it's an extremely volatile market, extremely complicated market. And as I said, I don't know if I'm going to manage to say it correctly this time. It's better to have one in the pocket than two in the air.
Donc, effectivement, on est
So,
les premiers déçus.
We are the first to be disappointed, but the most important message is
Qu'avec cette action
that
tactique,
with
s'il y
this
avait une
tactical
société
action,
qui pouvait faire ça,
if
c'était Medincell.
any company could do it, it was Medincell. And here we are securing the future of the
Sachant
company,
qu'il n'y a eu de mémoire,
knowing that if my memory is good, there were only 3 transactions of a capital increase that took place,
et Medincell, c'est
and Medincell is one of the 2 main ones. Yes, and the 2 others
Des opérations dans lesquelles DVC
were operations in which DVC was guaranteeing all of the industrial side of things. So we're the only company who did a normal increase in capital on the French market.
Merci pour cette réponse.
Thank you for that answer.
Alors, je pose la question et puis je ne sais pas qui va y répondre, mais quelle est pour vous la stratégie
So what for
partenariale
you is the
idéale
ideal
pour le
partner
futur?
strategy for the
Est-ce que de
future?
nouveaux partenariats
Would it
multiproduits,
be new
Teva,
multi-product partners such as Teva, with or without Teva, or somebody else, or
par application et
a partner approach per application?
Je crois qu'il
with
faut
different
rester
partners.
pragmatique
I think we have to
et
stay very
évidemment,
practical.
développer
And of course,
quand on a un partenaire le pipeline de produits
when we have a partner, we have to develop the
partenaires,
pipeline of
partenaires,
potential partners we can develop with this
focalisation
partner. Very often the
On voit
partners
que
have a
Teva,
strategic focus.
vous laisse développer dans le CNS et grâce à nous, on développe une franchise de produits
Teva,
dans
thanks to
la
us, is developing a long-acting injectable for schizophrenia. And this will no doubt be the case for other partners. But of course, we won't stop ourselves working with a partner on a single product if it meets a significant medical need. And if Rémi tells me that it's worthwhile investing in the relationship.
Sébastien, on nous demande alors.
Sebastian,
on revient sur le tapis.
okay,
Ouais, mais ça-
putting this back on the table
On
again.
nous demande avec quel type de
We're
compagnie
asked
est-ce qu'on
with what
travaille
type of
avec
company we work
Est-ce qu'on
currently, who we're
travaille
talking
avec
with, who we're doing feasibility studies with, and if among these there are what
Big Pharma.
we call any big
Dire qu'il
farmers.
y a des sociétés de toute taille.
Well, I can say that there are companies of
Et,
all
ça va y compris
sizes,
même avec
really.
la biotech ultra innovante,
Even with the ultra innovative biotechs in the North American market,
à la société un peu plus grande.
to larger companies.
On a tout un spectre
So we have an entire
et de futurs partenaires.
range of partners and future partners
ou
of business.
privé?
Public or private? Both.
Alors, et voici la dernière question.
And this is the last question for this evening. Christophe, a NASDAQ quotation envisaged in the near future? Well, this is something we're looking at closely, and we asked Rémi to get ready for this.
Le moment venu,
when the time comes, maybe, especially as in the past week, with all of the noise made by Teva on its strategic orientations, on the importance of our product, we are called upon increasingly. American funds are turning to contacting Rémi and to increase the visibility of our company, to gain access to capital and also cash. It would no doubt be a step that we will take in the future. For the time being, the value is too low, so our goal is to achieve values that are key for Euronext or NASDAQ. We must go beyond the bar of 500 million, which puts us on the radar, and beyond which we can have cash, which is judged normal with efficient markets, hedge funds, big investment funds. And this is really our next objective, is to achieve that level of valorization, which will make our lives easier. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Richard. Thank you for being with us and for answering all of these questions. Some more important appointments this week. Tomorrow in Lyon, Thursday in Bordeaux. Christophe and Rémi, you're going around the country, so our shareholders who wish to be with us can see you there. You should have received an invitation, but if not, send us a mail. We'll be happy to meet you to take these discussions a bit further. It's something very important for us. Yes, so beyond that, we're also broadening out our communication to Europe, because during the summer we will be in Brussels or Geneva, Luxembourg, and we're also preparing with our American agency of investor relationships, some future roadshows across the United States. Rémi, maybe you can say a few words also on our analyst strategies. Yes, today we have our coverage is very French. We have 5. Of course, even though we're working actively to attract more coverage and international coverage, with a greater coverage in Europe and in the United States. So we're going to carry on working in this direction. A great challenge. Any other questions among yourselves? Or? In any case, thank you very much for all of you for being with us, for having been through this complicated year this year, the increase in capital in a macroeconomic context and biotech context that was extremely complex. I think that you can see that we have a lot ahead of us, and above all, the financial visibility to see things coming. So thank you for your trust, and see you soon. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Goodbye, Richard.
So we're out, Anita? Are we done?
What should happen is that it should be.
Okay.
I should have a Zoom interface. Zoom interface. Oh, we should have Zoom interface.
Did you say Richard that we're out?
Oh, yeah, I did. I think I said. Yeah. Hi, Richard. We're over now and out. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Hey, thanks for your help. Really nice job, especially in the middle there.
Thank you.
Where you lost sound.
Yeah, they forgot to give me the sound from where the guys are speaking, but that's okay. You did really well. Thank you.
I'm just gonna keep going.
That's it. Okay, you have a great day then. Okay.
All right.